stream. I wanted to hop up tonight to go over some more questions. This time I actually picked out all of my favorite questions to answer instead of having to sift through some of the nonsense ones. And I got a special fun one at the very end that we're going to go over, so definitely stay tuned for that. As always, I'm going to need a minute here just to get myself set, make sure that we're shared out, and make sure everything's working correctly for us. I might have to grab my keyboard real quick, but we'll see. Should be a good night. You're going to have to bear with me tonight. I'm sorry. I'm pretty exhausted. I went in for overtime today, even though they sent me home because they didn't need me. I still woke up at 4:30 this morning, and I was up till 2 in the morning last night. So yeah, I'm on like 2.5 hours of sleep, but it's all good because I'm off tomorrow. I'm gonna sleep in. I'm gonna get a good 7-8 hours of sleep and spend that time on some beautiful, beautiful dreams. Hopefully, we'll see. But in the meantime, I definitely got to go over some things. There were a couple questions I got again that I still didn't get around to, and then there's a whole list of like some of my favorite questions that I've been wanting to answer because they seem like fun ones. And then a couple just straight up comments that I probably shouldn't even answer, but I'm going to do it anyway because I also think it's going to be fun. Give me a minute here. We're going to check out all of our parameters here. Make sure that we're showing up where we're supposed to. Make sure that our audio is on point. I'm going to have to drink this coffee because I'm pretty damn tired today. As long as nothing gets too crazy, I don't expect to be up here too late tonight, but we'll see how it goes. You know, it's a Sunday night, so I assume most people are probably sleeping. Okay. Looks like we're good on TikTok. Beautiful. Looks good. Okay. Audio sounds good. We are in beautiful shape. All right, we're rolling. I don't know if I should set a goal on TikTok. I'm still not too sure how all that stuff works. But maybe we'll try that in the future. I'm going to turn this off. You could probably hear the echo. All right, sounds good. Looks good. I mean, sounds decent, looks decent, whatever. Don't know why I can't get this thing straight. All good. Okay, where are we at? Are we live on YouTube? Yes, we are. Beautiful. Okay. Looking good. Oh, hi. All right, looking good. Floridalma Pasquale. What up? Hi, bye. Okay. Elise Aspie said hi. What up? Teleassociate, yo, what's good? And Miss Tierra, hello. What's happening, everyone? Good to see you guys here. It's gonna be a good night. I got a bunch of questions to answer. I don't want to take too long here. Looks like we're in business, though. Looks like everything's working correctly. I'm gonna throw a few. Well, actually, I'm gonna try to add the comments to the video so we can see them. Can we overlay the comments? Yes, we can. Beautiful. All right, that looks good. As you guys tune in, let me know how you're feeling. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And just if the audio is okay, or if the audio drops out or anything, let me know. Hopefully my phone won't die on us this time. What up, Kayla Davis? What up? What up? Weird. Okay, we're good. Yeah. So how's everyone doing tonight? We're here for another live dream stream. I got a bunch of good questions I want to answer. A few comments I would like to respond to. Oh, I see what's going on here. That's not cool. Or you know what? Maybe I could leave that. Maybe it don't matter. Let's see. If the video cuts out or not. I guess we'll find out in a minute. But yeah, as you guys roll in, just let me know how you're feeling. Let me know how you're doing. Yeah, it looks like we might lose. Okay, apparently that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to take my phone off of power saver mode. Are we still here? You guys still with me? Did I lose it? Are we back? Are we good? Testing, testing, 1, 2. Testing, testing. Okay. Yeah, that's not going to work. All right, we're here. So my phone is not going to last all that long, but we will make the best out of this. Hopefully it'll hold out for us for a while. Give me a minute. I'm going to share this out everywhere I can. I guess I could do that too. If you guys have any questions you want to throw in the comments section, just add a few question marks. Add a few question marks after it so I could see. Miss Tierra, thank you. Thank you. You said we're good. Beautiful. Yeah, throw your questions up so I could see them. In the meantime, I'm going to be going over some old questions that I haven't gotten around to yet. Like I said, you got to bear with me tonight because I really didn't get much rest last night, and I had to get up early for work, and I've just been trying to work on too much stuff. So, all right, I'm going to share this. I'm going to share it to my YouTube feed, and then I'm going to go over and share this to Facebook and see how we're doing. Every time I cut out and go over to Facebook, I'm not going to be able to see anyone's comments, just so you guys know, but I'll be checking back in periodically. All right, let's share this out to everyone we possibly can. Let's get as many people in here as we possibly can. I know it's Sunday night, so it might be kind of slow initially. Where are we at? Yeah, we're going to focus mostly on dream questions tonight. So if anyone has any questions about dreams, but nothing too strict. Whatever you guys want to talk about, we could talk about it. I'm here for it. It's all good. But most of the questions that I got do relate strictly to dreams. I'm sorry. Cool. Okay. What up, Ashley? All right, cool. Looking good. Really good to see all you guys in here tonight. Especially if I could get some of those people from Facebook to come over to YouTube, that would be ideal. Oh, Bren, you said looks good on both TikTok and YouTube. Yo, thank you. Thank you so much. Seriously, I appreciate that. All right, so let's get into some of the questions then. I don't got too long here. My phone's at 79%, so we're just going to keep the countdown going. Of course, if we really do get into a really engaging conversation or something, I could always unplug the microphone and just plug my phone into the charger. Obviously, the audio quality is not going to be so great when I do that, but if we got a good conversation going, I'll definitely do it. Again, there was a couple people in the comment section over on Facebook. Actually, I was commenting underneath someone else's post, but I did invite these people to a live friendly debate. I told them I'd be coming up here going live. Again, like it's a bunch of like fundamental Christians that just want to keep spewing negative comments on some of my stuff. So and other people, other creators that I respect that don't deserve that type of hate. So I welcomed all of these people to. I told them I'd be coming up live. I told them, jump on over. I'll let them join me on screen, and we can have a nice friendly debate. I would definitely be open to that. But it's funny because every time I mention that to someone, they never say anything back. But we'll see if someone shows up, and if they do, if that's the case, I'm definitely gonna probably unplug this mic and I will plug into the charger because I don't want to get cut off in the middle of a debate. But it's funny. It seems like a lot of these people who they have so much to say. Let me guess, they say it is demonic, like they always do. Yes, that's one common thing that I've heard. I literally got a comment recently that said, "You, sir, are the devil," is what they told me. They straight up told me that I am the devil. And yeah, that's not all I hear. That's not all I get from them. But yeah, it's funny. And like, sometimes I show respect to Christ consciousness and stuff, and a lot of times they will, like a lot of Christians will be like, "Oh, praise Lord, you have a way with the word and all that stuff." Because I make one like relatively positive comment about some sort of passage in the Bible, and then on the other end I have, and then like, and when I do that, I'll have atheists hating on me, like, "Oh, you believe all that stupid nonsense and stuff," and it's so funny because like whatever. I'm not gonna get too far into that tonight. I would love for someone to come up here and debate me. I'm not the best with any of these topics. Like it's not. I think I've only read the Bible from cover to cover twice, and it was two different translations. One was the NIV, which is not the best translation, and the other one was actually the New World Translation, which is the Jehovah Witness version of the Bible, basically. So I've read both. I've read those cover to cover, but I have spent a lot of time digging through the Bibles. I have a couple different copies behind me here. One of them is a really, really old antique copy. It's like it's one of my favorite books that I have. But I'm not like an expert on any of this. So any like well-schooled Christian apologist, like expert, would probably make me look stupid with the scriptures. But to the average religious person, like they don't stand a chance. I definitely welcome them to come in here and try to say something. It's like nobody is happy either way. So do what thy will. And if I get mad, good. And if they get mad, good. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, in the beginning of my journey here, I definitely tried to play it safe. And if you go back and watch my videos from like 2, 3 years ago, you could see that I was trying to be generous to both sides and definitely tried not to be on either side of the fence too heavy. I didn't really speak out against any of it, but it was like the more I post and the more I put myself out here, I noticed I get more hate from Christians than anyone. I mean, I've literally have these people cursing me and wishing that I burn in hell and stuff because I might say something that seems to undermine their doctrine. So I made the conscious choice to stop being quiet about it. I'll start responding to the comments. It's gonna be what it is. I have all these thoughts, and it's like I was holding back for a while, trying to just be cool and like play the calm, even road. And I didn't want to push away any of my potential audience because I know like the Christ lovers, they really appreciate it when I start saying something that validates the Bible. I mean, nothing can validate the Bible, but like I had the one episode about gemstones, and I mentioned all the gemstones that were talked about in the Bible, and like some Christians love it, other ones tell me it's demonic, but regardless, it's like I'm not going to hold back no more. We could talk about it. There's a lot to say. And I tried to be gracious, but they seem to be the most hateful group out there on the internet that are giving me the most hate. Actually, for a while over on TikTok, they were reporting my videos like trolls. Literally, any video I posted was getting reported, and I know it was from them. I know for sure it was from them. Actually, I confirmed it. So yeah, regardless, I'm gonna get into some questions, and then I'll address some comments. Why is my phone wanting to go to sleep? Hold on a second. I gotta fix that. Why does it keep doing that? I don't have the battery saver on anymore, so I don't understand why it would do that. Give me a minute, people. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, I'm just messing everything up here. What are we doing? Damn. Okay, I don't know what I did. Huh. I'm gonna try to bring the comments back up. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not good with this. I'm sorry, people. You guys are really gonna have to bear with me. I don't know what I'm doing. Did we lose it? Are we back? Are we good? I don't understand it. I'm not very savvy with this technology. All right, how we looking? I'm sorry. Still good on this end. Thank you, Bren. Thank you. I appreciate all your feedback. I really appreciate you staying on top of it with me. I bamboozled them, or you said I bamboozle them and use their own writings. So do I. So do I. One of my favorite things is to go to the scripture. And it's funny because it seems like the one thing that Christians are afraid of the most is actually reading the actual scripture. I can have a ongoing debate with one of them extended, and we could go on and on into the depths of irreducible complexity and fine tuning and all of these things. They don't mind going there, and they don't mind shouting down on the science and all that, or even just the the logic and the philosophy. But as soon as I go to open a scripture, and as soon as I want to start reading a passage with one of them, it's like they shut it down. They get so evasive. They want to end the conversation. They default to the like, they're like, oh, well, you think God contradicted himself, so that means you believe in him, even if you don't admit it. And it's like, no, no. When I say that Jesus lied, I'm not saying that I believe that he was what they say he was. I'm talking, it's an internal critique. And it is the most self-defeating argument you can give them when you're internally critiquing their own theology. But like a lot of them just don't see that. The honest ones do. And I have had some good conversations. A good friend of mine that I work with named Andrew, I'm actually going to bring him on here one of these days for a live interview for one of these sessions. And I would like to have that conversation with him live, because we usually do it at work and I'm too busy to really get into it. And I almost feel bad because he's not prepared for this. He's a really smart dude, really smart, really inquisitive. And that's one of the things that blows my mind with a lot of these Christians. Like, a lot of them are very wise, very intuitive and receptive people that just somehow believe in this insanity and this nonsense. But the ones that are like relatively reasonable, and they're not too blinded by their faith, and they're not too indoctrinated and disillusioned, they're usually honest with it. And when I bring up something like an internal inconsistency or a contradiction in the Bible, at least they can admit it for the most part. And they don't ad hominem too much. They're not like throwing insults. Oh, the Watcher, what up? What up? Great evening. Yes, it is a great evening. Thank you for being here. Thou shalt have no gods before me. Okay, ladies, goddess, you first. Yeah, troll face. Yeah. Yeah, what's cool, and what I acknowledged it in my recent video that I just put up last night, the deep dive on the ancient history of spirit and air. And I go into great details about Asherah, the goddess Asherah, and how she was worshipped alongside Yahweh. I know I mentioned that again last night. You said, how's it going? What's the topic? This is just an open Q&A right now. The topic is always dream psychology, ancient symbolism, but it could be anything, whatever. We're here. I was live last night. I did cover most of the questions I wanted to get to. So I had some time tonight, even though I'm tired and I barely got any sleep. I'm off tomorrow, so I got some time. I could stay up tonight. We could chop it up, talk about whatever. I have some questions that I haven't gotten around to, and I actually went through and just picked out some of my favorite questions just so I didn't have to sift through some of the nonsense ones. So that'll be the topic. I'll go over some of these questions. Okay, I caught that live. It was great. Thank you, man. That's cool. I really appreciate that. I haven't done like a live deep dive in a long time, like fully informative, because I've been focusing most of that energy into my actual formatted videos. Just seems to be the most productive way for me to work here. But I do have some interesting questions to go over tonight. And then there's the very last question I want to address is something that I wish I would have prepared for more, but it's interesting, and I'm actually excited to get into it, and I will end up making a full video about it. So we could get into it. I could go on and on about the Christians all day, even though I don't want to. It's something I enjoy, and it's something I've always enjoyed. I've spent quite a bit of time reading scripture, and I've spent quite a bit of time just trying to explore these topics with Christians, and I do appreciate a lot of the poetry. But yeah, like Yeah, when you said thou shalt have no gods before me, yeah. That's one of the commandments from Moses, and that's like one of the most ridiculous to me. You know, let's not forget how many times God condones slavery in the Bible, but for some reason he couldn't put it in any of the commandments to not own slaves. Like, unbelievable. He said, I'm just saying when God hides his wife, it's giving having an affair vibe. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's desecration. Yeah, exactly. Why was God so ashamed for people to acknowledge his wife too? And what's funny is that she was a mistress because God Yahweh took Asherah from El. Asherah was in the Canaanite pantheon was worshipped alongside El, the great supreme deity, who was the supreme God long before Yahweh, long before any concept of anything in the Bible ever existed. The Canaanites worshipped El, and El was the wise father god that sat on his throne in the clouds, and Asherah was worshipped alongside El. And then, of course, as the Israelites and people from the southern Levant area started to move up to Israel and these cultures started to blend, Yahweh kind of took on the characteristics of El, and basically Asherah kind of switched up her game and jumped over to Yahweh's ship. Oh, that's right. Yahweh was a home wrecker. Absolutely. Absolutely. He took all the best traits from Baal, basically, and Adad and El, and kind of, took all the best stuff out of their houses and brought it over to his house. And he's a composite character, really. He's also a damn cheater. In the Old Testament, he cheated at wrestling. It's funny. That's another thing I bring up to the Christians that they never like to talk about, but when God went to visit Abraham, I do have the actual passage in my notes here. I have a whole cheat sheet of go-to information for when I'm arguing with Christians, but uh, and I also have a bunch of stuff highlighted in my Bible back here, so I could always pull that out. And some of it is highlighted because I like it and I enjoy the passages, but a lot of it's highlighted because it points out clear contradictions and inconsistencies. But yeah, Yahweh cheated at wrestling. He lost, and it says he struck the man in the shallow of his groin. Or there's a few different translations depending on which translation you're reading. But basically, Yahweh tried to hit this guy in the nuts while they were wrestling, and he still lost. He still lost the wrestling match. Like, oh, it's hilarious. Oh, also the god Kamash wiped the floor with Yahweh, and they even admit it. I'm not familiar with that. I'm not familiar with that. But, and what do you mean they admit it? The Christians admit it? That's interesting. Yeah, the mythology is fascinating to me. Okay. Okay, I see what you're talking about. The Great Wrath, the intervention of Kimash. Oh yeah, the national god of Moab. Yeah, and again, that's another internal inconsistency. And yes, that's one that they can't deny because it's directly written in their scriptures. That's another great one. I see some of the arguments for it here. They will always find a way to twist and bend things. It's like the word is literal. It's always the one truth, and it's always literal until it says something they don't like, and then it's a metaphor. Their hermeneutics is all mixed up and twisted. It's hilarious. But yeah, am I missing? Am I not seeing the YouTube comments? Where are we at? Okay, we're good. We're good. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to get into some of these questions and we can get back around to the topic of Christianity, because there is a comment I just wanted to address real quick that one of these Christians left for me. But first, I want to address some of the substance full. Okay. Okay, it looks like we just skipped out. Or maybe that was just on my end. I'm having issues tonight. And none of the kids are here running up the internet, so I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it's so glitchy for me. Hopefully it's not glitchy on your end. All right, I'm going to get into some of the questions here. Yeah, so Joyful2 asked me, they said if you could share one dream interpretation with everyone on earth that would significantly shift their understanding of themselves or reality, what would it be and why? Now, I promise you guys, I didn't really go over these questions ahead of time. I mean, I read them and I copied them and pasted them, but I haven't really thought about them too much. I just took the ones that had the most substance to them. It said, if you could share one dream interpretation with everyone on earth that would significantly shift their understanding of themselves or reality, what would it be and why? One thing I would say that would shift their understanding of themselves or reality, what would it be and why? One thing I would say, I mean, there's so many answers to that question. I'm not good at coming up with one straightforward answer to anything unless it's like a yes or no question. But one thing I would say is that when you dream of another person, especially like a partner or a loved one, whatever that dream is about, it's most likely not about that person. Whatever the content of the dream might be, it's most likely, I would say most definitely, usually a reflection of your own inner self. And that's something that people got to keep in mind. You know, there's been like a few times where my girl woke up and she's looking at me crazy, telling me she had like a bad dream where I was like cheating on her in the dream, which I've never given her any reason to think that I would ever do anything like that. I had never even come close. We haven't had any issues like that in the past at all. So there's no reasonable reason for her to think that or feel that way. And it's relatively common. It has happened to me too in the past with similar dreams like that. And just the one thing, if I could tell everybody, and it could probably prevent a lot of issues, because like she'll be looking at me sideways all day after she has a dream like that and be making comments about it and stuff. I mean, not not her in particular, but especially once I explain it to her. But I know it does happen with people. It's just, I think it's really important to remember that that's not a reflection of the actual person. Just because you have a dream of your partner cheating on you, or you have a dream that your boss is going to do something terrible to you or fire you or something, that's usually not a literal direct meaning. So people should keep that in mind and try to shake off any feelings that you might carry with you throughout the day towards that person, because it usually means there needs to be some separate type of self-reflection there. Good on TikTok, thank you. I would say have them face their own internal labyrinth and face what comes as best they can. Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and that's really powerful. Part of the issue is that part of the issue with that is that, and I mean, the question was if I could, what was the question? Share it with everyone on earth. Now, the issue there is that not everyone on earth is capable of inducing a guided dream like that. Not everybody is able to consciously influence the content or the direction of their dreams. Well, everyone's capable, but most people just don't realize it. So before I talk to them about facing their own internal labyrinth, we would have to go through how they would even be able to do that and get them up to that level first. So like one fundamental thing that wouldn't take any skill or any other preconceived knowledge to accomplish is just for people to keep it in mind. If I could just make everyone know for sure and understand that when they have a dream about someone else, it's not about that person, it's usually about them. You know what I mean? But yeah, definitely facing your own internal labyrinth is a big one. I mean, there's a lot of great tips like that, like creating your own dream home and stuff like that. Mine is like an extreme ripping the bandage off method. Yeah, that sounds like some type of shadow work, kinda, and that's very crucial for growth. It's really, really powerful. I think the whole world would definitely benefit if they could do something similar to that. So the next question is from 2Joy2222. They said, beyond their common interpretations, what's a seemingly simple symbol, like a circle or a tree or whatever, that you find holds the most profound, often overlooked ancient wisdom? Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't like to get into like specific symbols. I don't like those dream dictionaries or nothing. But a simple symbol that I find holds the most profound, often overlooked ancient wisdom. First, I would have to say emotions. Fear is the first most common trait, even though that's not like technically a symbol. That's usually a response to these symbols. But one of the most overlooked and profound symbols, I would say, is the Ouroboros. And I've talked about that before in the past, and I do have a video on that. I got a few videos on that. But the Ouroboros is a very, very common symbol, and it can also be found in just about every ancient culture from all over the world. The symbol of a serpent that's circled around biting its own tail, representing rebirth and regeneration and infinity and eternity. And it's how August Kekule came up with his he discovered the chemical chain of the benzene ring from a dream about snakes biting their own tails. I've talked a lot about that, but I do think that's one of the most overlooked. A lot of people like to think about, like you said, a tree or a cross or a door or something like that. But those are not overlooked. I think all like those everyday things are acknowledged pretty often, but one of the most overlooked and one of the most ancient, I would say, is the Ouroboros symbol, or the symbol of the serpent biting its own tail. You said that's a tough one. Dream interpretation at its core yields how the individual intakes the symbol. Exactly, I agree 100%. And anytime I really talk about dream interpretation in any of my videos, I always try to give that caveat that dreams are extremely subjective, and what one person associates with a symbol, another person might not associate with that symbol. And I think that's pretty obvious and pretty widely well known and accepted. And that's why I don't like dream journals. And that's why I always tell everyone, no one can interpret your dream as good as you can. And I tell that to people when they're trying to ask me about their dreams. Like, I can maybe help walk them through it, but eventually, or essentially, the revelation is going to come from their own inner self. Not from me, because I don't know all of their subconscious past life or, life associations with all of these emotions and symbols and stuff. But with that being said, there are definitely archetypes that are like universal symbols that almost everyone can relate to, and they do have a universal association with them, regardless of what culture or what time period it is. And that's what the archetypes were. And Carl Jung discovered that, and there's definitely something to that. And I think it goes beyond the surface level interpretation. There definitely are there's definitely archetypes, and I have a symbolism video I'm in the middle of working on. I got like 12 pages of notes for it so far, but I'll have that video up next. That's going to be the next one. And there's definitely some universal associations with certain symbols, and one way that we can demonstrate that is from what's called the Kiki Boba experiment. And it's like if you show someone a picture of a blobby, rounded shape, and then you show them a picture of like a pointy, jagged, angular shape, and then you give them the two names and you ask them which word goes with which shape. So you have the rounded, bubbly shape, and then you have the pointy, angular shape, and you tell them one is named Kiki and one is named Boba, and you tell these people to pick which word goes with which shape. And 85, and this experiment, it's so overwhelmingly exhaustive. It's been done so many times, and 85 to 98% of people will match the word boba with the rounded shape, and they'll match the word kiki with the pointed shape. And this actually goes all the way back to like the 1920s. The first experiments for it were done, and the words were different back then, but it was still like, sharp, quick sounds. And either way, and also these experiments show that the results are the same regardless of the age group and regardless of what native language the people speak. So it doesn't matter what their native language is, and it doesn't matter. They even did this with kids that can't even read, kids that were incapable of reading. They would just show them the shape and they would ask them verbally, and the results are universally the same. So there is some sort of archetypal association with certain shapes and sounds, and there's evolutionary reasons for that, and I'm going to get more into that. I don't want to put too much out there. It's going to be that's going to be my next video, and it's really comprehensive, and it's going to bring us from ancient symbolism to modern day symbolism, and what we see in like advertisements and products and how they're designed and everything around us, and how you can understand the world around you better, basically. But it'll also help people understand their dreams. So you said, I see Black Widow spider and think, oh, hi, Lilith. Someone else sees, I'm going to get trapped and eaten. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, that's the common example is like some people dream of water and they feel like it's liberating, and they feel like it's cleansing. And then other people have dreams about water and it's like their ultimate fear, So like someone goes in the dream dictionary and looks up water, says they had a dream about water, and it could be completely different depending on your subconscious association. But my point is that there are archetypes for sure. And it's also highly subjective at the same time. So I think it's about finding the balance between those two things. You said sounds like a commonality with sounding of the names. Interesting. Yes, it's definitely commonality with the sounding of the names, but it's not just verbal, and it's not just with the names. So the Kiki Boba experiment is very common, very widely known. It's like one of the most common experiments in psychology by far. But I came up with something else that I thought of myself because it just dawned on me as I was going through some of these things. I wish I could find my notes for it because there is a scientific. Well, we've talked about it. There's the scientific term called synesthesia, and I've made videos about that in the past. And that's where people associate uh, two completely different things, and they find a way to associate them. So people who and synesthesia, people can be born with it. It can be onset. It can come on with age, and it can also happen from brain injuries. But when people experience synesthesia, some of them, like, they will associate different colors with different sounds. So, like, if they're hearing a certain sound or a certain song or whatever, they will literally see these bright colors, different colors that go along with the sounds. For some of them, it's like obviously like a lower sound, like a bass will give them bursts of red, stuff like that. It's a real condition. It's really interesting, but it's not just like colors and sounds. It goes across any medium. So like sometimes certain tastes, they'll get certain tastes and they'll see different colors depending on the taste, or they'll hear certain sounds, or they'll get different sparks of emotions depending on what they're tasting or what they're hearing or what they're seeing. And it's just about cross association between different mediums. But another one besides the Kiki Boba experiment that I thought of myself, and I think it displays the same thing in a different way, and it's really interesting. And this isn't any known experiment that I know of that's been done in any type of way. So I can't say that it's as well grounded as the Kiki Boba experiment, but I am confident that it would have similar results. And that is like, if you were to describe the flavor of a banana with like one adjective, whether you use like sharp or dull, is a banana dull or is it sharp? And if you were to describe a lemon, this is what made me think of it, because I was thinking like a lemon, what is the flavor of a lemon? It's sharp, right? And I asked my kids, and it worked perfectly with all of them. I asked my girl too, but I don't remember what she said. But she usually I don't know. But she usually just kind of laughs these things off. But like, how would you describe the flavor of a lemon compared to a banana? A lemon is sharp, and a banana would be dull, right? Or bland, or I don't know. So even that's not necessarily specifically about the composition of the word or anything. It's literally something that's descriptive. You know what I mean? I thought that was interesting, but I'm going to get more into that in my next video, and I've been taking rigorous notes on this, so I don't want to get too much into it because I got so many notes here. We would be here all night. And that one's probably going to be like an hour or 2 hour long video at least. Yeah. So the condition where people experience where they connect different sensations, that's called synesthesia. But the field of science that's dedicated to studying these cross associations, that's actually called phonoaesthetics. And it's that alone, that specifically is basically like the symbolism of sound, connecting symbolism with different sounds. And yeah, there's something to that, and that helps describe what some of the fundamental archetypes are that we see in our dreams. But of course, as you said, they're still highly subjective, but that is important to keep in mind. Brian, you said sounds like a commonality with sounding of the names. Okay, yeah, yes, I have that condition, but mainly with contact with plants. That's interesting. Yeah. You're definitely not alone with that. I'm pretty confident that that's relatively common. What's up, Sisha? How you doing? Good to see you here. I know it's late. I really didn't expect any of you guys to come over and check this out. I haven't seen anyone else from Facebook yet. I don't think. What are we looking at? I'm sorry if I'm missing the YouTube comments, people. Oh, it doesn't look like we've gotten any new ones. I'm gonna throw a comment up in the YouTube chat. Yeah. So, geez, what was that? The first question? We didn't get very far, did we? I think I talked too much. Okay, back. Oh, yeah, that was our second question. Okay, so the next one. Maybe not that one. Let's try a different one. That's kind of the same as the first one. Let's not do that one. Maybe I should have vetted these comments a little bit better. I just did too much direct copy and pasting. Oh, this is a good one. From Qmon, it says, I'm sorry if I pronounced that name wrong, but this person's probably never going to see this anyway. It says, if you were designing a dream curriculum for schools, what's the first concept you'd introduce to help students understand their inner worlds? I think that's a great question. I think it would be really cool to have some dream courses in school. I think that would be a lot more beneficial than a lot of the subjects and a lot of the things that kids learn in schools these days. What's the first concept you'd introduce to help students understand their inner worlds? Well, I would introduce. Now, I wouldn't start with lucid dreaming because that can be overwhelming, especially for kids. But the first concept, I would start with what we were just talking about, and that would be symbolism and understanding the psychology of symbolism. I think that comes first. And then I think it's important to learn a lot of the ancient symbols and to learn what cultures have associated with these symbols over a long period of time. Because again, there's definitely archetypes, and yes, I'll say it again. Everyone is highly subjective and very individual, but at the same time, it makes sense that we would all have some shared associations with some fundamental symbols. Because if large cultures, large groups of people over many, many thousands of years have had similar experiences with particular symbols, they're going to end up collectively having an association with that symbol. So, like, archetypes are not some, and that's another thing. I see a lot of people kind of refer to them as something that seems really dogmatic, and like metaphysical. And I'm not saying there's nothing dogmatic or metaphysical about them, but I'm saying you don't have to take that leap because it makes perfect evolutionary sense on why we would have certain archetypes. It's just been ingrained in us, genetically. It's ingrained into our subconscious over the many, many generations of having similar associations. I don't think that that's too far of a stretch either. I mean, call me crazy if you want. Oh, sister, you said you're actually going to sleep. I love you. We should get together soon. We should, definitely. Please, definitely come by. Bring the camper by. We could chill. I got a hammock up in the front yard now. It's beautiful. And I was just out there by myself earlier today driving the remote control boat out on the pond sitting on the front porch driving the boat on the pond. That was pretty cool. So yeah, definitely we do need to get together, please. I haven't had a good drink in quite a while actually. Maybe we could get a bottle or something and bring Taylor over, and hopefully we could get Jamie to hang out. That would be really cool. I love you. Let's do it. Peace out, sister though. Have a good night. I will be in touch with you. Actually, I've been meaning to get back to you about the last message you sent me about your dream. So, I will. I've been thinking about that. That's some really really heavy stuff that we probably don't want to talk about up here, but oh, don't say you don't know if you want to come back. You want to come back. It'll be good. I promise. I promise. She'll be in a better mood. She didn't mean it last time. Don't let that ruin it, please. We'll make it worth it. Especially cuz, the kids will be around. So, we can jump on the trampoline next time. Whatever. Uh yeah, so the next question, there's a couple here. Let me fix my chair real quick. This is not very comfortable. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, that's better. Hmm. Okay. I don't see. Hold on. Okay, we're good. Yeah, so this next question, I like this one. This is a fun one. Where'd it go? Okay, what's one ancient ritual or practice involving dreams or symbols that you believe has profound relevance for modern life, even if it seems strange at first glance? Hmm, I like that one. What's one ancient ritual or practice involving dreams or symbols that you believe has profound relevance for modern life? Uh, I would say I mean, the most prevalent and the most impactful would be the dream incubation, and that is like one of the most ancient ritual practices involving dreams. And like the temples of Asclepius, they were called Asclepii, and they were different temples that people would go to go to sleep and try to induce certain types of dreams to get different answers to their questions. So I think that would be probably the most obvious answer to that. And also, the Egyptians had temples dedicated to different dream gods to try to induce different types of dreams. Oh, this is a great one. That's pretty much what we were talking about already. I think we basically answered this. But they said, how do you reconcile the highly personal nature of dreams with the seemingly universal patterns found in ancient symbolism? Where do they meet and where do they diverge? And again, that comes from a much broader understanding, and that's where, if someone is trying to figure out what their dream is about, and like usually if people were to come to me and ask me about it, that's why I did say that someone who's relatively familiar with these symbols can help walk you through it. But essentially, you're going to be the one that can determine that. You have to personally be the one to discern where they meet and where they diverge. Because I don't know your mind and I don't know your past and your history as well as you. So Yeah, we would have to go on a case by case basis to say where they meet and where they diverge. There's no there's no universal answer to that. And that's how I would reconcile that. Okay, what was a dream that fundamentally changed your perspective on something important in your life? And what insight did it offer? Uh, I'm sorry, I haven't been reading out the names. That was Boreos or Boreas. I don't know. They asked, what was a dream that fundamentally changed your perspective on something important in life, and what insight did it offer? That's a good question. And I've talked about the dream about my grandfather before. I've talked about that all the time, so I'm not going to go over that again, although that would be my number one answer for this. Also, the dream where I defeated my childhood nightmare. We've talked about that before, so I'll try to come up with what would be the next one in line. A dream that fundamentally changed my perspective on something important in life. Okay, so this is one I probably haven't acknowledged. I definitely haven't acknowledged it in a long time. I think I did mention it before in a past dream session, but I'm not too sure. Actually, I definitely did. Yeah, we talked about this in the past, but I don't bring it up so often. There was a dream I had where I tried to go to Area 51 because at this time I thought I was able to astral project, and that's something we talked about last night. And I told you guys how I tested it, and I got curious and I wanted to put it to the test. And this is actually the dream that inspired me to start thinking like that and made me want to start testing it. I had a dream. Well, again, I thought I was astrally projecting. I went through all the things you're supposed to go through when you're preparing for an astral projection, and I separated from my body and I lifted up into the astral realm, and I was able to turn around even and see my body, and I located, like telepathically located Area 51 and flew there. And what I found there was a bunch of a bunch of beings. They were like aliens, but not what we would commonly associate with aliens. They were almost like claymation type figures, and they were very rudimentary, and they almost seemed dumb. Like they seemed not very smart. Maybe that was like from the perspective of my own ignorance. I don't know. But they kept like uh pointing behind me, and like they were pointing to the sun. And like, it was like they kept trying to get me to look at the sun. And at the time I was like I've astrally projected to Area 51. Like I wanted to see a spaceship or something. Like I'm trying to communicate with these beings. Like why? All I remember at the time was like them pointing and trying to get me to look, and I was like, I don't want to look at that. I see it. It's the sun. Like it's almost like these dumb things have never seen a sun before. Like why do they keep pointing to it, telling me to look at it? I was like, I look at it. I was like, I see it now. Show me your spaceship. Like where are you guys coming from? What's the deal here? And nothing else, not much happened after that. But when I woke up, it made me realize there's no way that even if there are some type of aliens at Area 51 or whatever, they sure as hell couldn't be those beings. And I was like what was I seeing? Was it the like some sort of extraterrestrial manifestation in the astral realm? It that was hard to believe because like the image that I got of them, and just the overall vibe I got from them was almost like they were like uh automatons, like dummies, like and that's really what made me start questioning it. And also the layout, like the geography of the area. I don't want to get too much into it, but the geography of the area could not have possibly been Area 51. It was no desert. So I'm just like, and I didn't even think about that in the dream at the time. I wasn't even questioning that. I thought I was astrally projecting. The first thing that I realized when I started thinking about all this stuff the next day when I woke up was that was definitely a lucid dream. I was not astrally projecting. I fooled myself. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start testing it. So I came up with, different falsifiable tests that I could do. And every time I tried one of those tests, uh, it always failed. So that's what made me realize that astral projection, if it is possible, I don't think it is what most people think it is. And I really think for the most part it's just a very vivid lucid dream, if I had to guess. That's just my opinion though. And I've challenged people to prove me wrong, and nobody's been able to do it yet. They haven't gotten any results in any of the lab studies that they've done. So, yeah. And again, it doesn't go against anything that I believe in. It totally could be possible. I can make a strong argument for why astral projection could be completely possible, and it's not even outside of the realm of logic, really. But that's only in a hypothetical sense, because I can't find any type of evidence or reason to believe that it happens the way that people think it happens. And then, of course, anytime I try to like put someone, sometimes I'll just question people like, are you really good at astrally projecting? Like, have you gained control? Have you learned to separate the silver cord? All these things, and like go through that conversation with these people that are completely confident. And then when I ask them if they'd be willing to do this test with me, where I'll draw something on a piece of paper and put it on my nightstand, and then if they tell me the next morning what was on that piece of paper next to my nightstand, then we have something to talk about. And of course they could always get lucky, but it's like none of them have even come close. Most of them won't even attempt it. And a lot of times I get the cop out from them, whereas like of course, and maybe it's true, but they'll say just because I'm trying to test it, that builds up a wall of resistance that keeps them from being able to penetrate that spot just because I'm putting it to the test. And it's like, maybe that's possible, and maybe there's another way we could do some sort of blind study with it. But uh, I'm not. I've thought about that. I'm like, I could even draw it. I could even draw the picture and put it somewhere away from the house, outside, and like they're like, no, but it's gonna keep that resistance because that's you putting it to the test. All this nonsense. So either way, you know what? I'm not convinced. And until someone can convince me otherwise, maybe the astral realm is one of the dream realms. I don't know. But either way, there's no one has ever convinced me that they're capable of interfacing with this reality at all. So until we get there, I remain unconvinced of most of their claims. And it doesn't mean that it can't be very powerful to have some sort of outer body experience in a lucid dream. I think there's definitely a lot about that that's magical and powerful. And that's why I don't like when people try to tell me like I'm bringing in the science and trying to like close the door on things with my science and stuff. That's like a common a common thing I get from a lot of these religious people, and it's like, no. And I mentioned it in my one new video that like science is not a one-way dead end road. Science is just a method of explaining all of these or many of these beautiful, fascinating things around us. And magic is real, but what most people claim is magic is just illusions. That doesn't mean there's not real magic in the world. The world, nature is magical. Every day I see it. Everything about nature is beautiful and magical and mysterious, and there's always new things to learn that will blow your mind. Like, the real magic is out there for sure. You know what does kind of shut down farther inquiry is invoking some sort of God or creator being that's just, you can say that's the explanation for any gap that you want to fill. And that can be a dead end road. That could be a one-way dead end road, more than science, which every time you answer a question in science, you automatically open the door to more questions. And every question has an answer, but every answer brings on more questions. So, that's not necessarily the case when you defer to something like the biblical God and you just fall back into the circular reasoning that most of those people do. That doesn't really get you too far. So, yeah. Oh, sister, you said I was just about to ask if you were astrally projecting. Yeah. Seda, you said I used to be able to control my dreams when I was young. As I grew older, I lost it. Yeah, I just put up a post about that. Not necessarily with controlling your dreams, but I put up a poll on every one of my social medias. I did Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, and I asked people if they've generally started forgetting their dreams more as they grow older. And that's very common, actually. That's kind of what happens, and there's a lot of reasons for it. And the same reasons for why people start to forget their dreams more as they get older would be the same reasons as to why you're not able to control your dreams as much as you could when you were young. And I think obviously the explanation for a lot of that is pretty obvious. You become more conditioned by this physical external world over time. You pack more into your subconscious and into your conscious to where you may not even have the mental space or the capacity to have that free, open potential in your dreams like you did when you were young. We become more desensitized to them over time and just more engulfed by this physical reality. Any tips on how to have more lucid dreams? Oh, absolutely. Uh, Seda, I'm gonna throw a link in the comments here because I put out a free ebook that anyone can download. I only put it out there because so many people have asked me, and instead of like typing out paragraphs and paragraphs in the comment section over and over again, I just figured I'd put it all into an ebook and then I could just share it with people. So I'm going to drop that in the comment section, and I would definitely highly recommend that you go download that onto your phone. You'll get the digital copy of it right away. And it's an easy book to read. It's not real deep into all the philosophies and all the nuanced understandings. It's a straightforward, no nonsense guide on how to remember your dreams more and then how to start to lucid dream. And it includes all of the most effective tips that are used in labs all over the world, plus some personal things that I've tried and recommended to people that definitely work, that are highly effective to help you lucid dream more. So I'm going to throw that link in the comments section right now. And I know the comments on YouTube, I don't know if that comment came from TikTok or YouTube because I'm on Restream here. But I know the comments on YouTube disappear after the live's over. So I'll definitely repost that link after this. I don't know if the link is even clickable in the chat right now. I don't know. Maybe they don't let me put clickable links in the live chat, but yeah, download that. And then just some quick tips on how to have more lucid dreams would be I should ask Seda, do you Have you ever written down your dreams in the past? Do you have an old dream journal? Or do you at least have 5 to 10 dreams in your memory that you can recall relatively vividly? That would be my first question, because if you have if you have some dreams written down somewhere, or if you can recall like a handful of dreams from your past, one great way to start to lucid dream is to recognize what one of your dream signs is. So if there's any common themes that you can find that are shared throughout all of those dreams or most of those dreams, and a lot of times it's something that seems relatively ambiguous, like, or something even like mundane. It's not always like the main theme of the dream. But if there's one reoccurring thing, anything, even if it's an emotion or a color or a shape or like a specific object or a specific person or a location or even a song that you might hear or a certain sound you might hear or even just like a general setting, any of these things, look for a common theme or multiple common themes that reoccur throughout every dream that you have, or almost every dream. Thank you. Thank you for downloading it. Cool. Yeah, that'll definitely help. And so just think back. You could do this tonight. Think back to some of your dreams and try to pick out one common theme. For example, like for me, what I realized after writing down my dreams, this was over like quite a few years. It didn't really jump out to me until I started looking for it. But one thing I realized was that I was always in a house or like a big building. It was usually old and dilapidated in some way, but not always. But one common theme that I learned that was in my dreams, I almost always dream about it in one way or another, is like a big building or a big house. And a lot of times I'm in that house trying to get out. Sometimes like in the one dream, I was on the hillside looking down at this giant bed and breakfast mansion. And other times I've been lost in giant haunted buildings. And sometimes another one, I was like in the tunnelways underneath this big old house. And so that's a dream sign. I realized it was just, and it's pretty vague, but it was a reoccurring theme in my dreams. So I noticed that, and I just told myself, anytime I find myself in a situation like that, I'm going to ask myself if I'm dreaming. And eventually, if you keep doing that, you're going to ask yourself if you're dreaming while you're actually dreaming. And it's going to help you become lucid. And it might even work for you tonight. Sister, you said, what if you and I did some sort of thing like that? Were you talking about testing with the lucid dreams? You said, I don't think I can astrally project, but I can definitely lucid dream. Okay. For example, could we do something like place a drawing and test each other somehow? Yes, we can. We absolutely can. And, uh, I mean, I don't want to seem dismissive, but I'm pretty confident that that's not going to work. Uh, remote viewing is a whole different thing, but whether or not we're able to do it in a lucid dream. Sister, you remember like last year, it might have even been like 2 years ago now. We were all supposed to meet up on the beach, me, you, and Chris and whoever, I forget. I think Dee Dee was in on that. We were all supposed to see if we could share dreams, and we were all supposed to try to see if we could meet up on the beach, and that was I was never successful with that. And anytime that anyone has ever told me that they've shared a dream with someone, I haven't been convinced. I'm sorry. I know I interviewed that dude Theo a while ago who told me that he met with a friend in a dream, and then, they both woke up and wrote down their dreams, and then they compared them afterwards, and they both had the same dream. But then come to find out it wasn't exactly the same dream, and that it gets complicated. But and at the same time, like, dr- that doesn't disprove it, because as we're existing in this real world, what we would call this physical waking reality, we're all still kind of, I mean, we're completely just experiencing our own personal subjective perspectives. So that's why when you get like multiple eyewitness accounts of the same thing, of the same situation, you'll get different accounts from the eyewitnesses sometimes, depending on what angle they were looking at it from. So like sister, you said, well, that was a lot of people, but what about just you and I? We could try it. We could try it. Uh, but you know, whether we're talking about astrally projecting or lucid dreaming, again, I think anytime people think that they're astrally projecting, they're probably just in an extremely vivid lucid dream anyway. So yeah, we could try to do a lucid dream test or something. Definitely message me and we could figure something out with that. Uh, and keep in mind that scientists have been studying this. The field called onerology is the study of dreams, and they do experiments like this all the time. And it's never been definitively shown that anyone could share dreams without using external technology, like we've talked about with REM Space Labs and all that. Where are we at? Let me check YouTube. All right. And how long have we been live? Almost going on an hour and a half. My phone is at 46%. Not too bad. All right, we're doing good. Let me go back to my questions. Okay. Yeah, this is a pretty good one. From Rebel, yeah, sorry. They said, how has exploring dream psychology and symbolism changed the way you approach your own life choices or understanding of difficult situations? That's a tough question to answer because I've been dabbling with this stuff since I was like 12, 13 years old now at this point. I'm 33, so like I don't remember much of a time before I was interested in dream psychology to be able to compare it with, to be able to say how it's changed my approach to my own life choices. If anything, I've integrated the concepts from dream psychology and symbolism, and it's helped to shape the way that I approach my own life choices and my understanding of difficult situations. So it didn't necessarily change it, but it did help shape it over the years. And in what ways did it do that? Um, it has always kept me relatively open-minded to a wide variety of possibilities, because as grounded as we might get in this physical world, when you enter into that dream world, it really does show you how thin the veil is between your conscious thoughts and your perceivable experiences, if that makes sense. So it kind of keeps me open, and it keeps me from being too dismissive about anything. I'm I'm an open book when I'm talking about these things, but I try to be really careful with my words, because it's also made me realize that like the way that people perceive things can usually be taken in the wrong direction. Also, the same way that people misinterpret their dreams, and I've seen it so many times. And another example, again, like we talked about, when someone wakes up after they've had a bad dream about their spouse cheating on them or something, and then they treat their spouse like shit for the rest of the day. Like, that's something that I notice people do this in their everyday waking life in different situations, usually because they don't care enough or they're just too ignorant to recognize their external problems and influences enough to have a rational approach to them. Again, that obviously it doesn't make me better than anyone. I'm not saying that I can like psychoanalyze the whole world, but just from my perspective, I think if people were more familiar with the abstract realm of their inner mind, I think they would be more gracious towards other people in their everyday life. I do think that exploring dreams can generally keep people on a path of humility. I really do. I don't think that I highly doubt that there's been anyone out there who has actually like mastered their dreams or, learned to basically lucid dream on command or to be, people that have been able to completely influence their dreams every night or almost reliably every night. I don't think people like that are the cocky type. You got to be humble because it reveals some of the most vulnerable parts of you, and those things will be revealed to you in your dreams, like and your nightmares. So again, it's like no matter how tough you are, you might walk around thinking you're the toughest thing in the world, but a nightmare is going to scare you if you have the right one. I don't care who you are. And if you think you don't have nightmares, it's probably just because you don't remember your dreams. Unless you've really done a lot of shadow work and stuff. But yeah, cuz and again, like, to me, the last time I had a nightmare, I think I was very, very young. I've talked about that actually before in the past, but regardless, I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't even think I could have a nightmare because there's no monster that's gonna scare me in my dreams. Like, I'm just not gonna be intimidated by anything that might try to impose some sort of physical harm on me. But that doesn't mean I can't have nightmares, and I'm very well aware of the capabilities of the subconscious mind, and I know that something like that can humble you real quick. So I could have a bad dream about something that might happen to a family member, and it doesn't matter how tough you are. If you have a nightmare about something bad happening to your child or your loved one or one of your parents or your pet that you love so much, you could be macho man all you want, but that will bring you to tears in your dreams. And that will be your own subconscious mind revealing your own vulnerability to you. So I don't even remember what question I was answering, but uh, oh yeah, that was how has exploring dream psychology and symbolism changed the way you approach your own life. Yeah, sister, you said I think if we both tried to, it would happen. Yeah, you're probably right. What I'm trying to say is if you and I agree to something before you go to bed, make it work. I get what you're saying, sister. I totally get it. We could try. What do you think about dreams that turn into deja vu in real life? I've had that happen more than once and can literally quote word by word what will happen next. Seda, where did you come from? Have you been in the chat before? Because yeah, I've talked about that in the past. I've made videos about that, yeah. And I also mentioned that in the ebook. Once you read that, you'll see that. That's one of the main reasons why I emphasize so much that you should write down your dreams. And this is something I can definitely testify to. And it's just way too specific and way too coincidental to be a coincidence. So I've definitely posited the idea that deja vu, the experience of deja vu, is just from dreams that we've had in the past. And the reason I believe that, I'm sorry. Oh, you said no. I started following you recently. Just found you. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I think that when we experience deja vu, I think that comes from dreams that we had in the past. And I have evidence for this. And I still, someone that I'm friends with today could definitely attest to that. That's why I think it's so important to write your dreams down and to write the date on them when you write them down. And and if you're keeping them in your phone in your notes or something, it's definitely beneficial because I've had deja vu, and I've gone over, for this one time in particular, I was working in the kitchen and it was very specific. Like the deja vu was the dishwasher, the kid was washing dishes and he said something to me, and like I dropped the pot and we both started laughing, and I was like, wow, that was very, very vivid deja vu. And I knew at that moment I was like, yo, I've dreamed about this before. I told him because just recently before that deja vu happened, I was going over my dream journals and I just had happened to be digging through some really, really old ones. This was from it was like less than a year. I think it was like 6 or 8 or 9 months or something, like before the deja vu happened. I had this dream written down in my journal. And I told that to the dishwasher at the time, and I was like, "Yo, I've dreamed about this." And like he's like laughing, ha ha ha, yeah, whatever, like sounds cool. But I was like, no, I could get my notebook. I brought in my notebook the next day, and you could see, obviously, the notebook was very old. It was like tattered, and the pages were worn, and you could tell I had written it a long time ago. And the pages have been like folded, and some of them were like fading and stuff like that. But I had it dated, and in the dream, I had written down exactly what happened between me and him. And at the time when I wrote that dream down, I didn't even know him. I hadn't met him at that point. But the way that I mean, I didn't describe him specifically, like his personal features, but I did mention him standing at the dish sink in exactly the way that he was when that happened. Like, so I think that when people, it's just a hypothesis, but I think it makes sense, and I think it's relatively valid. And maybe it's not what happens all the time, but I think when people have deja vu, it's because they had a dream about that experience. They had a premonition or a precognitive dream that might have told the future because even if, I mean, it does get a little complicated, but most people don't remember their dreams every night. We know that everyone has multiple dreams every night. Most of us don't remember the vast majority of them. So anytime you have deja vu, it's likely because you had that in a dream, and it's awesome if you could keep a dream journal or keep track of your dreams. You can reference back to that when you experience that deja vu, and it's a very unifying moment. Actually, it's really, really profound. So you're the only other person I've ever heard mention that, actually, but that did happen to me. So, Seda, I would definitely recommend getting a dedicated dream journal. That's another way to start remembering your dreams regularly and to help you lucid dream. And if you look it up on Google or on YouTube and watch some videos on it, that's like the one thing you'll probably hear the most. And you'll probably hear it like first thing from most of these people is to keep a dream journal, a dedicated dream journal. Not just like a scrap notebook that you keep next to your bed. If you have something, and it doesn't have to be like a fancy leather bound fairy journal with feather quills coming out of it and sparkles and beads on it. Although that would be really cool, and you could do that too. You can decorate your own and make it, custom, personalized, whatever feels magical to you. But it's just important to get a dream journal. I don't have mine. I don't have any of my personal ones down here at the moment. Yeah, no. But I do sell dream journals in my shop, so I'm not trying to push anything on anyone. That's not like the point of these live streams or nothing. But if you're interested, I do have dream journals available in my shop with some cool dreamy designs on them, night sky designs and silhouette designs and stuff. I could also customize one for you. So if you find a dream journal in my shop that you like, you can send me a message through Etsy or whatever and let me know if you want your name on it or a particular phrase or a saying or whatever. And also, I could give you a discount. I would definitely give you the discount code for that. So, yeah. And pretty soon I will have the ebook that I just had you download. I'm gonna have that printed into physical books, and I'm gonna put like 100 pages at the back of that book for people to keep track of their dreams too. So, yeah, I think that would be beneficial to a lot of people. Oh, you said I've had that happen more than once and can literally quote word by word what will happen next. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, isn't that wild? So keep track of your dreams. And like I said, if you're not, sometimes it feels too inconvenient to write them down, although there are a lot of things that are could be argued to be beneficial about like the organic aspect of putting pen to paper. But that's a different conversation. If it works better for you to just keep the notes in your phone, use your Google Notes or your Apple Notes. I don't know if Apple has notes, but whatever. Or even if you just use the voice recorder on your phone, if that makes it easier for you. And of course, when you're writing them down, don't just write down what happened. And I've been guilty of this. I've even gotten back into the habit of doing this without realizing it. But don't just write down what happens in the dream. Write down how you feel in every moment of the dream. And one thing I always recommend to people is that you could just go to Google and look up different adjectives, because most people don't, and look up emotional adjectives, because most people don't even know how to clearly explain with their words what they're feeling, so they end up just kind of leaving that out. There's a lot of different ways to express the emotions that you're feeling throughout your dreams, and that will definitely help you connect with them and help you to tap into your lucid dreams more, is by keeping track of the emotions and just the thought process that you're going through while you're dreaming. What about past loved ones in your dreams? Do you believe they're actually present, or is it your subconscious? That's a great question. I really, really appreciate that question. And we've talked about that a lot in the past. And and I have a bunch of notes on a video I want to make about that in the future in a way, but the short answer is that just like astral projection, I mean, I have to be honest, but just like astral projection, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that when people are seeing their lost loved ones, it's actually a manifestation of that individual's consciousness. I'm just not convinced. I'm sorry. And I know a lot of people are going to tell me I'm wrong. I've had very powerful dreams where I've felt like I was contacting a lost loved one. And one thing I know about the human mind is that it can be completely convincing. We can completely fool ourselves. Anything that goes on and we know this actually because uh, neurologists can stimulate different parts of someone's brain to induce different visuals, and it can also affect their dreams. And they could do it in real time and make people see things that aren't there. And they could completely manipulate someone's personality and someone's perspective. And people have claimed to see lost loved ones when they're going through different types of brain surgery. So and we know that mirages are a real thing, and we know that optical illusions are a real thing, and we know that the brain can trick us. We know that we're not seeing the most accurate representation of reality around us. We know that we're seeing our brain's interpretation of this reality. I mean, everything we look at with our eyes, we're actually seeing it upside down, and because it's reflected on the lens inside of our eyes, and it flips upside down, and then our brain actually corrects it and turns everything right side up, and that's just how we see it through adaptation over time. So my point with that is that we can completely fool ourselves. I've also meditated myself into certain scenarios and certain things, and I've manifested certain beings, and I've talked with a lot of people, like a lot of people who invoke their spirit guide or something. And one thing, and from reading about this stuff, I'm sorry I have to give such long-winded answers, but one thing I know from from reading about so much of this stuff throughout history and throughout different cultures is that um, a lot of these people, I lost my train of thought, but a lot of these people have these experiences, and they will associate it with something that's related to their culture. In the sense that, like, obviously people in India, if they call on some sort of spirit guide, a lot of times it takes the manifestation of one of the Hindu deities, whether it's Krishna or Brahma or whatever. Of course, like someone who might be a religious, like a person that follows the God of the Bible, they're more likely to see visions of Jesus or the archangel Michael or something. And I know this from other people that I know, but I've known people who were like neo-pagans who were into, like, esotericism and things like that, and they would invoke different deities. And some of these people were completely convinced that they were really experiencing some sort of external entity. But I mean, I've come to realize that you can psych yourself and pretty much work yourself into a delusion about anything and be completely convinced of it, and your brain doesn't really know the difference. So just because my point is that just because you have an experience and you see someone in your dreams and it feels real, and that's the only answer I get from people when I start questioning them about it. They always say, like, you just know. They're like, you just know, you get that feeling, you can't mistake it. And I'm like, telling me you just know, that's like what some of the most religious fundamentalists do, just to push the question away. Like, I don't care if you think you just know. That doesn't mean that you actually know. We could trick ourselves. We can fool ourselves. We can convince ourselves of almost anything. The human mind is extremely powerful. So that doesn't mean, and it doesn't go against any of my beliefs. I don't think it's impossible to potentially contact a lost loved one. Like, maybe some version of their consciousness is floating around somewhere or got enveloped in some other higher dimension in some way that you might be able to interface with during your dreams. I can't say for sure that it's not possible. I could actually make a strong argument if I wanted to for why it is possible. But I'm not going to do that because so far as of yet I still haven't been convinced. And only because like I said, I've seen beings and things in my dreams that I know for sure couldn't be real. Like, some of these things were ridiculous, like those characters I mentioned before at Area 51 that were like these primitive claymation type characters. Like, there might be aliens out there, but it's sure as hell not those things. And when I was having that dream or that experience with them, I would have told you that they were completely real. And if I wanted to believe it, if it gave me any type of comfort in any way, I probably would have been convinced that I actually experienced something with some real aliens that night. But, just applying some critical thinking to it, I'm just like, if there is aliens, they're definitely not that. So, okay, you said I've always had premonitions and warnings ahead of time, and it isn't until it happens that I understand the message. It's usually been about betrayals. Yeah. That's very, very common for people all throughout history. I mean, that's what a lot of the most famous and epic tragic dramas throughout history have conveyed, is that the message was there the whole time, but it doesn't come into clarity until the very end when it actually reveals itself, and then it's like, and then it all makes sense from the beginning. That's very common for a lot of people. But one way that you could get ahead of that and actually try to recognize the premonitions ahead of time, to actually recognize them for what they are, and to have some discernment between them. Again, another way would be to just start tracking your dream that you wrote down the day before, or even if it was the week before or a few days before. Because, if you don't necessarily remember your dreams every night, that'll probably be the case. But go to the most previous dream. Go a few dreams back, go once you get a little collection of them. I don't care how familiar you think you are with them. Go through and reread these dreams and put yourself back in those shoes. And then you will familiarize yourself with them enough. And if you do that over a long enough period of time, this isn't something that will happen overnight, but over a period of time, you'll be able to see which dreams ended up coming true. And like you said, the common theme behind them is betrayal. So you're already a step ahead there. So anytime you have a dream about betrayal, be on the lookout for that betrayal manifesting itself in your waking life. Uh, you said, why do they fade so quickly? Hold on. Let me message. Okay, you said, why do they fade so quickly if you don't speak it or write it down? Well, there's a lot of reason. Well, actually, there's only two reasons for that, but or one reason really, depending on how you want to look at it. And you could just approach it from the casual, like you're getting all of this external input from the world around you, and you can only hold so many conscious thoughts at once. So once it gets flooded with all of this sensory input from your waking life, that kind of pushes out the dream content. But there's a neurochemical reason for it. I know um, Andrew Huberman from Huberman Labs. I know he had a great episode about this. Also, the one of the scientists that discovered this, that was responsible for the breakthrough discovery of this, his name was Matthew Walker, and I think he's relatively popular too in this space. But the reason they fade so quickly is, I mean, depending on how you want to look at it, because as soon as you wake up, your brain gets flooded with neuroepinephrine and acetylcholine and cortisol. So any fear that you were having during your dream, your cortisol levels are extremely low while you're dreaming. Even if you have a scary dream that shows that you are experiencing some sort of what would be stress, your heart rate increases and stuff. but you don't actually get stressed out in that dream the same way you would in your waking life. And that's a whole different conversation. And there's reasons for that too. But they notice if you did have an intense dream like that, as soon as you wake up, your body will get flooded with all of that cortisol. And that's why, after you have a nightmare or something, you wake up sometimes feeling so overwhelmed. Or if you experience something sad, you'll wake up feeling so overwhelmed with grief. Or if it was something scary, you'll feel so overwhelmed with that fear when you wake up. Because, like I said, the norepinephrine and the acetylcholine and the cortisol flood your brain as soon as you wake up. And there's also reasons for that to snap you out of that drowsiness and to help you get the right foot forward and get your day going and to increase your heart rate. So there's reasons for these neurochemicals, but they're also responsible for wiping out the memory of those dreams. I think the norepinephrine is the one in particular, specifically, that's actually responsible for making you forget that dream content. And there's also like an evolutionary explanation for it, and I'm not making this up. There's these are actually leading hypothesis in the scientific field for these things, but there's the obvious reason, the adaptive reason for that, like we don't want to remember all of our dreams all the time because then we would start confusing them with our waking reality, especially if someone that you know or people that you know were in your dream, or if you're having a dream about like your workplace or something, you would get to the point where you would start confusing your dreams for reality all the time. So you don't want to remember all of your dreams every single night, obviously. That could be really detrimental and can get confusing. And you might end up getting to know a version of a certain person through your dreams, and that might not be what that person is like in real life, but you might be treating them like they're the one from your dreams. So it can cause really complex relationship issues and just like communication and social integration issues. So you want to forget your dreams. You don't it's good that we forget them. There's definitely a reason for that. We don't want to be able to not distinguish reality, our waking reality, from our dreaming reality. So that's important. But it's so when you do want to remember them, though, it's good to learn how to combat that. I've talked to people who tell me like they don't have to write their dreams down because they remember them so well. But I'm not convinced. I don't care. No matter how well you think you can remember them, nothing is going to be better than writing them down as soon as possible and capturing all of the emotions that you possibly can. And also, like I said, just so you have some actual documented evidence, if you do have a dream that ends up coming true, you could show that this was written down before it happened. And if you have that deja vu, you got the receipts for it, signed and dated. All right, so my phone is getting kind of low. Definitely don't want my phone to die. Last night, as soon as I got off that live, my phone died. So I'm glad I said goodbye when I did. But hmm. Okay, looking good. All right, so I got a few more questions here from the older sessions I'd like to answer. I don't understand why TikTok does this. It keeps erasing the comments on me. Whatever. Yeah, that don't matter anyway. Whatever. All right, so how did I lose all those comments? What did I even do? I don't get it. Are we still good? Is my phone overheating? I don't know what's happening. It is pretty warm in here. Hmm. Well, I seem to have lost the comments. I don't get it. And I guess, okay, here we go. We got them back. Seda, you said I've had dreams with specific individuals that I don't interact with regularly and will literally be woken up by a phone call from them or about them. Yeah, I, I feel you. I feel you. There definitely could be some sort of energetic connection there. I always got to play devil's advocate though, and at least ask, and just something to keep in mind. Uh, just from a purely analytical standpoint, and yes, this is just me trying to be a skeptic, and I'm not saying, again, like all of this stuff makes perfect sense. And I've had those same exact experiences just like that to the point where it's so uncanny. It can't be a coincidence. But keep in mind, and just something to keep in mind, how many phone calls have you ever been woken up by? Probably throughout the course of your life, quite a few. And if you were woken up by a phone call, you would have been woken up from a dream. Since everyone basically has multiple dreams every night, and throughout the course of your life, you're likely to be woken up by phone calls a decent amount of times, maybe more than we even realize. This, of course, you'll realize this one because of the connection with the dream. But my point is just strictly based on chance, considering that there's billions and billions of people all over the world, and all of those people are having multiple dreams every night, and quite a few of those people are going to be woken up by phone calls, statistical probability would say that even just strictly based on chance, eventually that's bound to happen. That's all, that's my devil's advocate for that. Is that it doesn't, no matter no matter how coincidental it seems, it could still be random. Even if it's like the exact person and they're talking in the exact same way, and even if it completely predicts the future, like again, billions of people have billions and billions of dreams every single night. A lot of those dreams are going to be about potentially future events. So just by statistical probability, some of those are actually going to come true to the T. Like they just have to. If the chances are 1 in a million, or if the chances of that happening are 1 in 10 billion, even then, over the course of a few years, you've got many, many billions of dreams and some of those are going to have the potential to come exactly true. And that is my devil's advocate. I mean, I could just have fun with this, just like with the lost loved ones and dreams. Of course, the thought crossed my mind for a split second before I shut it down and I didn't actually entertain this. But I could easily make paid courses that people would have to pay for on contacting lost loved ones. And I could easily give these people like guided meditations that will coerce them into having some sort of experience with a lost loved one. You can create your own guided meditation. You can psych yourself out enough to end up interacting with a lost loved one But I had to be honest with myself, and I got to be honest with people out there. Like, I think for the most part, you're just hallucinating. It's just an illusion. And there's no way for me personally to discern whether or not they saw an actual conscious agent or they just psych themselves out and they're having illusions. There's literally no way for me to tell. So, like, I just got to kind of hope for the best. And, I have to be honest and open with people and let them know, even if that's not an actual conscious spirit, even if it's not the manifestation of a lost loved one, you can still find a lot of closure with it. And you can still have conversations with them that will bring you comfort. And the whole time you will be understanding your deepest, most inner personal self even more. And it's still powerful and you can still learn and grow from it. So I wouldn't shy people away from trying to do that. I just don't want to be out here making videos about it and trying to endorse something when I know very well it could just be a product of that individual's imagination. Same with like astrology and like yes, there could be something to astrology. There likely is something to external astrological bodies having an energetic effect on us, but most of it's nonsense. So I'm not going to push it and I'm not going to feed into it, and I don't care. I could definitely make a lot more money off my stuff here online if I was willing to do something like that. If I was willing to play the psychic game, but it's all illusions. But even that's magical. Even the fact that we can even recreate some sort of conscious experience with a lost loved one, or the fact that we can put together a cohesive sequence of events subconsciously in our dreams that we end up experiencing later on in life, even that is just, it's fascinating. It's really interesting, and there's something magical about that. Whatever it may be, you can come up with different explanations, but you got to agree that there's something fascinating and magical about that. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I will repeat it again. Understanding things logically, that's not a one-way dead-end road. So, every answer has more questions, and every questions have more answers. So yeah, my phone's getting pretty low. Like I said, I don't want it to die on us. How are we looking over here? Anyone watching this, if you know anyone that you think might be interested in this, share it out and go to my page and share out the last hour-long video I put up on it's a deep dive on the ancient history of spirit, breath, and wind. And yeah, I might call it a night on that note. I do have more here. We didn't get around to that comment that I was talking about, but like I said, I'm getting tired and my phone's getting low. How long have we been up? It won't show me. Okay, we're just over 2 hours now, so that's cool. Again, how do I keep losing the chat? I don't get it. I do not get it. Whatever. Yeah, it's late. Yeah, it's Sunday. I know most people probably have work tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow, so I'm going to be refinishing my stairway probably, sanding and staining it. And I also have a bunch of stuff to work on. So, yeah, I'm going to go get settled. Thank you. Thank you, Seda. Thank you for all your great questions and all your great input. And I could ramble on all night about any one of those questions that you ask. There's always more to say, and I'm sorry if I'm not direct enough with my answers and if I get carried away sometimes, but I just want to say so much. There's so much I want to say, and I try not to be too long-winded, but I just can't help myself. So, thank you. Thanks for joining me here. I really appreciate you. And I'll probably be up next week. I'm going to try to aim for going up live every week again. Yeah, I'll do my best with that. There's still questions, like I said, that I didn't get around to answering yet, so I will do that. And yeah, I appreciate you guys coming over and dreaming with me. If you're not too tired after this, definitely go check out my video on the ancient history of spirit and air. I put a lot of work into that, and it's really packed with a lot of information. So, peace and love, people. I appreciate all you beautiful souls very much, and I hope all of you have beautiful, sweet dreams tonight.